Good morning, class 11. In today's session, children, I'll be discussing with you the limitations of Bohr's atomic model, because in the last two sessions, I was telling you about the postulates given by Niels Bohr to describe his model. And I also discussed with you the concept of atomic spectra, wherein a very important formula was derived. If you remember, this is the formula. This formula helps us in finding the wavelength of the radiation which is emitted out when an electron jumps from the excited state to the ground state. Okay, an electron with its spontaneity has a tendency to come back to the ground state, and when you supply energy to the electron jumps from ground state to the excited state by gaining that energy. But that excited state is not stable, so obviously electron has a tendency to come back to the ground state. And if you have to find out the wavelength or the wave number or the frequency of that radiation which is being emitted out during the electronic transition, we need to use this formula. And now in today's session, I am going to discuss with you the limitations of Bohr's atomic model, and those limitations only helped us in the evolution of the Bohr's atomic model to quantum mechanical model. So please pay attention to the very important concepts that I am going to discuss today. Now, first concept that I am going to discuss today is dual nature of electron, which was explained by de Broglie's hypothesis. Actually, in Bohr's atomic model, if you remember, in the various postulates where Bohr explained the nature of the electron or the nature of the atom, he considered electron as a particle. But later on, with the help of de Broglie's hypothesis, it was discovered that electron has dual nature. That is, it behaves as a particle also and it behaves as a wave also. Particle nature is obviously when the electron was discovered, it was known that electron is a particle. Why? If you remember in the introductory session, I told you when electron struck the wall behind the anode, some patterns were observed. Okay, a glow was observed, a fluorescence was observed. Why? Because electron as a particle was creating that glow. But wave nature was not thought by any scientist as of now. De Broglie was the first person who put forward his hypothesis, where he said that electron has both the properties. It can behave as a particle also and it can behave as a wave also. And wave nature was further, it was justified or it was proved with the help of diffraction pattern, and diffraction patterns are basically shown by waves only. X-rays show the diffraction pattern, and usually all the waves show the diffraction patterns, which you don't have to actually go into detail of, but you need to know that electron has both the natures, particle and the wave nature. Now, considering both the natures of the electron, there you can get two equations. First equation says E equals to mc square. This is the Einstein's formula which was used here considering the particle nature of the electron. That means that if electron is a particle, obviously it must be having the mass. That is why this formula was given, E equals to mc square. And considering the wave nature of electron, Planck's quantum theory was used here, E equals to hc by lambda. Both the formulas represent the energy. That is why when you equate equation 1 and 2, you will get this kind of equation, and when you cancel out this C with this C, the formula will come out to be lambda is equal to h upon mc or mv. C is the velocity of light, m is the mass of electron, h is the Planck's constant, and lambda is the wavelength. And this particular wavelength is known as de Broglie's wavelength. Very important for your competitive exams also and for your class 11's exam also. It is very important. So this was the wavelength formula that was given by de Broglie, considering these two nature of the electron, that is it has particle nature and wave nature, and there is no flaw in his hypothesis. It was hypothesis means it is not an experiment. It was just a theory predicted by de Broglie, but it was later on very well justified by the various scientists. He gave an idea, and this was the formula of the wavelength considering its wave nature. Now, what he said all the moving bodies possess particle and wave nature. That means you and me moving, when we are moving, we also have both the nature. Car moving on the road also has the wave nature. But it is not applicable for macroscopic bodies, but it is only applicable to microscopic moving particles. Okay, there is a limitation to this also. It is only applicable to microscopic moving particles like electron, proton, and so on. Now let us see why this is only applicable to microscopic moving objects, not for macroscopic. Now if you consider a cricket ball, moving cricket ball, the mass of that cricket ball is 100 gram, and if its velocity is 20 meter per second, suppose the 100 gram ball is moving with a velocity of 20 meter per second, then what will be its wavelength? If you substitute the values in this formula, then you will find out the lambda or the wavelength that is coming out is 3.313 into 10 raised to the power minus 24 angstrom, which is very, very, very small, which cannot be measured. That is why this formula or this hypothesis is only applicable to microscopic moving particles. It cannot be applicable, it cannot be applied to macroscopic objects like cricket ball, or then obviously moving car will be too huge for this concept to be applied. I hope it is clear. This wavelength cannot be calculated or predicted. Now coming to electron, comparing this cricket ball's wavelength to the electronic wavelengths. Electron's mass 9.1 into 10 raised to the power minus 31 kg. Velocity we have calculated, Bohr calculated this velocity in his postulate, and then substituting the values will get the value as 3.2 angstrom, which is much more than this value. So if you compare the wavelength of electron with the wavelength of the ball, you can compare it and you can find the difference. It is much more than that of the cricket ball, which at least falls in the measurable value, which falls in the measurable range. That is why it is applicable to only microscopic object, not to macroscopic object. I hope children this dual nature of wave or electron is clear to you. This dual nature of electron, this hypothesis that is de Broglie's hypothesis was given considering only electron, though it is also applicable to other microscopic objects also. So an electron possesses both. That is why this was the first setback to Bohr's atomic model, where the electron was only considered as a particle but never as a wave. He never talked about electron as a wave. Now coming to a numerical to make this more clear. You can see here an electron has kinetic energy K. Find its de Broglie's wavelength. It is given that suppose an electron has a kinetic energy. This is actually not a numerical. This is a kind of derivation. This particular solution will give you a very simple formula, okay, which will help you in solving the numerical. So electron's kinetic energy is given and you have to find out the wavelength. Now we know that lambda is equal to h upon p. P is actually linear momentum, h upon mv. Okay, mass into velocity is momentum. This p is linear momentum. When we talk about a body moving in a linear path, then it is said that it possesses linear momentum. And if you remember, when a body undergoes circular motion, then it has angular momentum represented by L. So in this case we are talking about linear momentum only. So h upon mv, mv is what? Linear momentum. So children, you might get the formula in this form. It depends upon what is being asked. And now if you have to find out kinetic energy, if you want to find out kinetic energy, the formula for kinetic energy is P square upon 2m. Now from where do we get this formula? So please come and watch what is written here. P is equal to mv. I told you here momentum, linear momentum is equal to mass into velocity. If you know, it is well and good. If you don't know, please remember now. So kinetic energy, so I hope you all must have done in class 10 also. It is equal to half mv square. Kinetic energy is equal to half mv square. Now in place of velocity here in equation 2, I am substituting the value of velocity from equation 1, which will be equal to p upon m. So you can see here it has been substituted here. So it will come out to be half into mass into p square upon m square. This m and m will get cancelled off and you will get p square upon 2m as the value of kinetic energy, which I have substituted here. Now this kinetic energy value will help you in finding the value of wavelength. If you have to relate kinetic energy and wavelength, then obviously from this equation, what will be the value of momentum? It will be equal to under root 2 into m into kinetic energy. Now you can substitute this value here in the formula of de Broglie's wavelength and you will get a formula which is directly connecting the kinetic energy and the wavelength. So you can follow a long method. If you cannot remember this formula, you can keep the values and then solve. Otherwise, you can directly use this formula and you can calculate lambda if kinetic energy is given, or you can calculate kinetic energy if lambda is given. Okay, so this is again a very simple derivation that you can at least remember. Derivations will not be asked in an exam, but children, formulas, there are n number of new formulas that will be coming in this chapter. So please keep on writing each and every formula in boxes and keep on preparing your notes. This is very important chapter for your class 12, for your competition. It is an extremely important chapter. Now coming to another scientist, Heisenberg, a very important person of that time, and he gave his principle which is known as Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, considering the wave nature and particle nature of electron. So what was his principle? He said that it is impossible to measure the position and momentum simultaneously of a microscopic moving particle with absolute accuracy. So this was his principle. What did he say? He said if a microscopic particle is moving, then you cannot measure its position and its momentum simultaneously with accuracy. You can find out, but there will be no accuracy. So these are the key points that I have underlined. It is very important, children. So it is impossible to measure both the momentum and the position of a microscopic moving object with absolute accuracy simultaneously. And if you want to express this mathematically, or how he expressed his principle mathematically, is mentioned here. Uncertainty in position is represented as delta x, that is error in position is represented as delta x, and error in momentum is represented as delta p. Now the product of both delta x and delta p is always greater than equal to h upon 4 pi, which is a constant. So if these two errors are multiplied, the value will be equal to this constant h upon 4 pi, or it will be more than h upon 4 pi. So this was his concept, and these two, that is the de Broglie's equation and then Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, gave a big setback to Bohr's atomic model. And these setbacks, actually I'll tell you how it created a problem to Bohr's atomic model. But before that, let me discuss a simple numerical with you. If the error in the position of electron is 1.1 angstrom, then find the error in the measurement of momentum. So error in position is given, error in momentum you have to find out. You can simply substitute the values. H is a constant, pi is also a constant, 3.14. Everything is given to you. You have to find out the value of delta p. The value of delta p will come out to be 0.477 into 10 raised to the power minus 24. At times you might get to find out the error in the measurement of velocity. So momentum, you know, mass into velocity, mass of the electron you know, and velocity you can find out. The delta V value can be predicted with the help of formula. So I hope this is clear, or I am writing it here children. This can be written as delta P can be written as m into delta V dot delta x, which is more than equal to h upon 4 pi. So please don't get confused. You might get the question in the form of delta V also. Momentum is equal to mass into delta V. Mass of a body will remain constant. The velocity will change. So I hope children this much is clear. So coming to the drawbacks of Bohr's model. So the first drawback was Bohr's model was valid only for single electron species. That is, his model was only applicable for hydrogen or hydrogen-like species which has only one electron, like He plus, Li2 plus or Be3 plus. So his model first of all failed because of this reason. Second, Bohr considered electron as a moving particle, but then de Broglie's hypothesis clarified this, that it is actually not only a particle, it is also a wave. Then third drawback was Bohr measured position, electron, radius and velocity simultaneously. If you remember, in his postulate, Bohr measured the position of the electron, that is the radius of the electron, and he also calculated the velocity. Everything he calculated simultaneously. And now we know with the help of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle that it is impossible to measure the position and velocity or momentum simultaneously, and in Bohr's model everything was predicted simultaneously. If you know the radius, then obviously you know the position of the electron, and if you know the velocity, mass is known, you can find out the momentum also. And so position and momentum both were calculated simultaneously, which was proved wrong by Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Then coming to the fourth one, Bohr's model failed to explain the splitting of spectral lines in electric field. He could explain the spectra, atomic spectra, emission spectra that I explained you in the atomic spectra concept, but he couldn't explain that those spectral lines have a number of minute lines embedded within those lines, and those lines, this spectral line splits if it is placed in between the electric field, and this is known as Stark effect. Even they split if it is placed in magnetic field, it is known as Zeeman effect. These splitting of spectral lines couldn't be explained by Bohr's model, again a failure. Then ultra fine spectrum could not be explained. Ultra fine spectrum means that these spectral lines consist of many minute spectral lines embedded within, which could not be explained by Bohr. So these were the limitations or the drawbacks of Bohr's atomic model. Then later on the scientists worked upon it and they came up with the correct model, and now today we are following the quantum mechanical model. So children, in today's session I discussed with you very important principles. First is the hypothesis given by de Broglie, which says that dual nature of electron is there, and the de Broglie's wavelength equation is very important. And then I discussed with you the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, which is again very important. Overall, we were discussing in today's session the drawbacks of Bohr's atomic model. So please children, be regular in your sessions, be regular in updating your notes. It is very important chapter. Thank you for watching the video.